And
I I love it, and I'm sure my kids' teachers agree as well. But
yeah.
it's I mean, yeah, it's actually funny because I wanted to be a teacher at one point. I actually went to started going to college for it, but just wanted to go into biology and just couldn't get through all the freaking microbiology labs and crap. It's just ugh. I
And
don't I
here,
don't I don't
sorry,
want to
go
know the
ahead.
name of 5,000. I don't want to know the name of 5,000 bacteria. I'm good.
Uh,
Like,
so I actually started in biology. It wasn't until I failed. Um, so second year, there was a year-long 2-part organic chemistry course, and it wasn't until I failed that
yep.
first half of the course, and I'm going, "Oh my god, I've never failed anything before. Like, what am I gonna do? I'm now a year behind. I don't understand." I don't even really. So Lakehead University is where I went, which is Thunder Bay, Ontario, which it's got a huge forestry school. It's very, very well known for its forestry school. So a lot of the biology is actually plant-based, which I'm like, no, no, I don't care for that. Sorry. Kudos to those who can do it, but for $10,000, all I took home was phloem and xylem is what actually makes up tree bark. That was $10,000.
I wish that was all. I wish that was all I spent. But yeah. I mean, yeah. Plant biology is so boring.
It's the
And
worst.
don't
Absolutely.
even get me started. Don't even get me started on second, third year chemistry. Oh my god. And
I tapped out. I was like, I can't understand with the organic chemistry how the boat's going up versus down. That's all I kept. I was like, I don't understand. I'm gonna go to nursing. Thanks though. Thanks. And then the
I
nursing chemistry was super, like, not super easy, but like so much easier compared to the biology chemistry. So I'm like, oh great, this is fantastic.
yeah. I mean, chemistry to me was just one of those things where it was. I got it all. I could do the equations. I could do the board problems.
Yeah.
It's it's having to write the lab reports that killed me because I don't want to sit there and write 20-page lab reports about something I just did in class. So like, why do I need to write a 20-page lab report on how to do this? I just showed you I know how to do it. Like,
And it's like, and
ugh.
and the very specific way it had to be laid out. It was a whole thing. I
It
100% hear you.
oh I literally would be sitting at home with like, yeah, I got like 20 chemistry lab reports and like 10 biology lab reports to write up tonight, and I just am not doing any of it. I'm
Hard.
just gonna go. I'm gonna go grab a 12-pack and grab a joint and let's have some fun. Like screw this, screw the. I'm like, this is my chemistry right here. I'm good.
We're
But
good. This
it's
is a combustion right here.
exactly actually that was the cool. That was the best part about biology. All my years of college was actually getting to see some marijuana underneath a light microscope. That was the coolest
Yeah.
part of it all. Because the teacher left the room for like 10, 20 minutes. I'm like, you know what?
I was
I
gonna say,
want to
I'm
see what
like,
this
was
looks
that
like.
part of the curriculum? Because I 100% missed that
No,
one.
though my teacher actually was really interested when I took out a Camel Crush and I ripped out the crush in the filter and she's like, and she actually wanted to see what it looked like underneath the microscope because
Absolutely.
she's like, I want to know what she's like, I want to know what they're making it out of to really like have something you can crush in a cigarette. Like she's like, she's like, I would never recommend smoking, but it's interesting that they do this and I want to see the science behind it. So
Right? There's always that little bit of interest in the things that we're not allowed to be interested in.
oh yeah, I mean, I had plenty of college professors who would talk about smoking weed. So I mean, that was, and this is back in the days when it was illegal too. So it was
Yeah.
like they're like, oh, trust me, I know, I know some things about some things, and I
Is
just
it
can't talk
legal
about
in
it.
Mass then?
No, I was in New York then, and it
Okay.
was not it was not legal. I'm pretty sure in any state in the U.S. except California at that point.
Okay.
It it didn't get legal in Massachusetts till the year after I moved here in 2016.
Okay.
So, and it got legal in New York even later than that. I think it was like 2018, 2019, maybe even
That seems
2020.
super backwards.
No, New York is well. I mean, New York is way more conservative. Massachusetts is more of a liberal state. I mean,
That much I
Massachusetts,
can.
yeah,
Yeah.
Massachusetts was one of the first states to allow non-straight weddings. So,
Lovely. This is why I freaking love Massachusetts.
yeah, Massachusetts, being what it is for the founding of the country, they tend to like to give people their rights a little bit more than New York did for a while. I mean, now everything's the same everywhere for that type of thing. But
Oh my god,
and
rights. Who needs rights? It's fine.
welcome to America. But and I mean, yeah, and nowadays I'm pretty sure I can honestly see marijuana becoming legal federally in the next 10, 15 years. It should be.
Listen, the booming market in Canada, like we've got so we I'm pretty sure it's just about subsidized paying for renewing of license plates. Again, I could be 100% wrong. God bless my husband. He takes care of most of that. But like they all sprung up so quickly and so hard
Hmm.
that, if only they'd take some of that money and then put it back into healthcare, that would be absolutely stellar.
I Well, first they'd have to admit that it actually has healing properties and can help you medically, and then they maybe will. They don't want to admit that fully. They want to keep putting out all these fake news articles of the harms of it. So you gotta love the media. You don't have to, but they want you to love it. So, but
But it's just more of like, it's legal to sell, right? So, but you've got dispensaries that are legalized. So, of course, obviously, portions of that is going to the government. So, same with the LCBO, so the Liquor Control Board of Ontario. Um, we only just got liquor being sold in like corner stores. Otherwise, you'd have
uh,
to go to a very specific store and only, one or two per town kind of thing. So you'd have to kind of make a plan of it. You'd have to plan out ahead of time. But you were like, okay, so if the government's getting a portion of this money that I'm drinking, I'm using CBD gummies, whatever, um, you know, so the government's getting a portion of that money. Maybe we can put it back into healthcare. Especially considering the long-term effects of alcohol and alcohol abuse and all this kind of stuff. Maybe just put a little bit over there.
well, see, that's the difference between Canada and the U.S. Right there is the free healthcare. And in America there's way too much money in insurance companies to ever reinvest any money into the healthcare industry because insurance companies like their money, and so do all the pharmaceutical companies who pay all the doctors to push pills on people. So,
I don't know if I'd personally go that far, but each
well,
their own, right?
yeah, I mean, you guys got the free healthcare. It's different. Insurances play a big part down here. They control
Yeah.
politics. They control everything because they're the ones making the money and they're the ones with the money to push around. So,
And doesn't mean that Canada is perfect by any means,
oh
shape, or
God,
form,
no,
because you're
God,
gonna
no.
you're gonna wait a year and a half to get your knee fixed or your knee replaced, versus if you wanted to
Yeah,
do privately, you could probably get it done in the month. So
I've
there's
I've
there's
heard
pros, there's
I've heard I've
cons.
heard, I've heard the wait times are ridiculous. Yeah, and
They Yeah, it's not great. We try to do what we can in the emergency situations to get you seen by those who need to see you, and then follow-ups with those who need to see you as best we can. And at least in my hospital, I think we're doing a half decent job at, you come in with heart failure, we're managing you, we're discharging you home, but then we're making sure that you've got to follow with a internal medicine specialist within a couple of days, just to make sure that you're okay. Everything that we've done, is still working out fine, and that you do have that follow up. So it makes you feel better about, okay, somebody who we would normally years ago keep in hospital, now we're sending them home, but at least they're having follow up quite quickly with an internal medicine specialist. So
I mean, well, yeah, I mean, and it's the whole thing. I was going to get into this actually a little bit later, but I mean, the whole thing in America is you go to since COVID, you go to an ER, you could be waiting. Me and my wife have literally sat in the ER a couple years ago for 26, 28 hours trying to get seen.
stop.
Yeah.
I thought ours were bad. So we're sitting anywhere from like 4 to 6 on like a pretty busy day to up to 8 on like a really crummy day. But never 20.
Oh no, my wife and I literally went to a hospital on Halloween Eve.
Oh,
On
there's
on,
yeah,
all,
there's too
on
much
Halloween
to go
Eve.
on.
No, we went to a hospital on Halloween Eve, and We literally sat there from 5, 6 o'clock that evening till we finally left around 4 or 5 Halloween day in the afternoon without being seen.
Whoa.
So we finally just got up and walked out, and we're just like, I mean, and it's happened since then too, where we be
Mm.
waiting like 6. Now, if we don't get seen in like 6, 7 hours, we're out of there. We're not wasting our time.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll wait till the morning, go to urgent care, and usually it's a little faster.
Yeah.
But it's
And that's the
just
same thing, right? Like we in the ERs up here, 50 to 60% of the people coming in that I'm seeing probably could have been seen by family doc, urgent
mhm.
care, walk-in clinic. Um, there's very few emergencies that we actually need to like, okay, this is an absolute emergency. We need to get on this right away. Um, but unfortunately, the people who are coming in with the other issues, they those who are not as sick, unfortunately, tend to be twice to three times as loud about waiting.
Yep.
And so it's just like, I'm really sorry, but like we had an emergency, like the dock's been pulled. We only have one dock overnight. So it's like we're sorry. Like it is literally life and death. And unfortunately, some people really can't see past what they're dealing with.
I
Not to say
I
that what
mean,
they're dealing with isn't significant,
yeah,
but
of course.
but
I
at the
mean,
same time, like the chances of us already doing blood work, already doing ECGs, potentially already doing some X-rays, maybe even pain medications, Tylenol, Advil, that kind of thing. Um, we've got a lot of medical directives that we can actually implement before the doctor sees you, so that we can kind of how you teed up, so that when the doc sees you, it's a one touch. Okay, let me go through the blood work. I've seen the X-rays. Okay, here's the medication. Are you feeling better? Are you okay to go home? And that's the goal, is it for it to just be a one touch with the doc, because the more times the doc has to come back, the longer your wait time is going to be.
yeah, and I mean, since COVID, it's just gotten there's been so many doctors and nurses that have left the field since then that it's just got worse and worse and worse. It's just been
Yeah,
horrible.
it's
So
not ideal. It's
no, it's
better than it was 2 years ago, granted.
oh God,
um
yes,
yes,
God, yes.
but we're all still a little crispy.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. Like I said, nurses and teachers overworked, underpaid, underappreciated. So
Yeah.
I 100% understand, and I sympathize with everybody. But when they are taking people with little cuts in their fingers, and ahead of my pregnant wife, I start having a
Ooh,
problem. I start having a problem with things, and that's
yeah.
when I start running my mouth
Well,
because
'cause technically, so the CTAS system that we use, so it's the Canadian Triage Acuity Scale, it's how we kind of sort people, right? So CTAS 1, oh my God, you're dying, you need to come in right away, to a CTAS 5, what are you doing here? You're going to be waiting for at least 6 to 8 hours. This is absolutely something that could have been dealt with by your family doc. And so pregnant over 20 weeks, like that automatically, depending on what the complaint is, like you're already looking at like a 3, because technically pregnant women are immunocompromised.
yep,
So
exactly.
you're looking at a CTAS 3. So no matter what the complaint, you're roughly already in the middle of the sick versus the not sick. And really, I mean, to us, granted, pregnant people tend to scare a lot of ER nurses. The joke is,
Of course.
somebody comes in and there's there's somebody saying, "Oh, I've got something stuck up there," and the ER nurse is going like, "Please be a snake," and here's the OB nurse going like, "Please be a baby." And it's like the things that we're very comfortable dealing with on the opposite spectrums. It's just like, okay, like clearly we're all a little crazy about that, because nobody, OB is scary if you're not used to OB, and there's so many little intricacies to it. Um, but yeah, pregnant people tend to scare
I
the ER a lot.
I mean, I will say the hospital we've been going to that actually has our OB in it that we went to last time when you had to go to the ER. As
Yeah.
soon as we told them she's pregnant this many weeks, they literally put her
We're
in a
like,
wheelchair.
nope.
There, there,
Yeet. We're just
there probably was 50 people in the waiting room that night, and they literally put her in a wheelchair and brought her right to maternity, and maternity dealt with it right
yeah.
away. Which it was, I was like, oh, thank God, because there literally was like, this is like one of the biggest cities in Massachusetts that this hospital's in. There literally was like a full 50 people waiting room in the ER, and I was like,
Man.
I'm like, oh my god, we're gonna be here till like 2 days from now.
Yeah.
But it's luckily they pushed her into maternity and got taken care of. We were out a couple hours later, so and no
And
no
that's the
issues, thank
benefit,
God.
right?
But
Like, there is that gate that as soon as you pass, like, 20 to 24 weeks, depending on where your institution's kind of sitting, you get to bypass the ER, and the ER is so happy to be like, "See ya, enjoy OB, bye now." Like,
which I mean I don't blame them because if you're not OB trained, then you're not used to dealing with two lives instead of just one, and it's a
yeah,
whole nother ball game.
very much
So,
so.
but it works. But to get us a little bit back on topic, because my listeners are gonna be
Why?
like, "What
Why?
the hell are you talking about? You're talking about medical and a paranormal show the whole time?" But
Like, it's paranormal. Listen, haunted. The whole hospital is just haunted as shit. It's great.
and see, it's actually funny because I'm prepping for I do horror movie brackets on this show every couple months as like a special, and I'm actually prepping for the first part of a hospital asylum horror movie bracket, and it's just ironic that I've been watching those movies for the last month or so, while and it's
Well,
just
having
so
Nurse Ratched on.
I wouldn't go that Nurse Ratchet's a whole nother story, but so when we first started talking
Yeah.
online, you said you had some ghost experiences in hospitals, and
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
dying to hear them because
Oh, yeah.
that piqued my interest. I was like a dog when he sees a squirrel. My tail went up, and I was like, "Ooh, I've yet to have a real hospital ghost experiences on the show." Yes.
Come on. Pick up any nurse. Doesn't even have to be ER. Granted, ER, usually the little bit more traumatic, they tend to stick
Yeah.
around a little bit longer. Um, but so what was my first one? I think probably my first one was when I was actually, so I'd had my daughter. I'd switched over to the pediatrics inpatient unit because I'm like, look, I've burned out of the ER just a little bit. I'm gonna try peds. Let's deal with the happy, cute little children and see how that goes. And so it was this bright, brilliant new hospital that they had, 1 million square feet of care and, a huge, huge new hospital. And so going up to the new units and having like a lot of the offices, they built extra offices and they're just empty and hanging around. They actually had an apartment in the back of the unit for potentially parents who would be staying for long term. Why they thought the parents would be staying long term for children in our area versus being sent out is beyond me. But it was a great sentiment. It really was. So, I had a big double bed, double, maybe even a queen bed, TV, its own bathroom, a door that you can lock. It was fantastic. So, so the nurses would take their breaks back there, and you're like, okay. So I remember going back there and laying down to sleep, and I could have sworn that somebody was talking about not only a blood sugar, but like how they were feeling. And I can't remember if I actually sat up in the bed or if I just thought I sat up in the bed and said like, oh, that's actually not too bad, and then like went back to bed. No idea, can't remember what actually happened, but I was like, "Okay, that's kind of interesting." I was already kind of starting on my, spiritual woo-woo journey a little bit, just kinda dipping my toe into it, and, on that same unit, so that kinda freaked me out, so I'm like, "I'm not gonna go lay down back there anymore," and so went to the other side of the unit where we had, one room that had 2 stretchers in it, and it was for, like, initial assessment of pediatric patients coming in to see if they actually needed to come into the floor or if they could kind of go. And so I remember laying down on the stretcher, sleeping. The door was kind of open to the bathroom, which personally that kind of creeps me out. So I'm like, I always close the door, pull the curtains, but there's no lock on the door. And so I'm like, okay, I'm laying down, and I could have sworn had this dream where there were 2 children about the same age as my 2 kids playing on the floor beside me. So having a dream, being exactly where you are in the real world, and yet dreaming that there are 2 little kids beside you playing next to the stretcher creeped me so far out that I was like, okay, no, okay, now we can't sleep there either. Like, now we gotta find somewhere else to sleep. So, again, that was enough to say, like, okay, like, what is going on? And this is the same time that I'm starting to see a reflexology Reiki person for the very first time for Reiki and reflexology. And she happened to also be intuitive. And she's like, oh, you're an empath. You've got a lot going on and this, that, and the other. I'm like, what's an empath? Like, I don't understand what that is. She's like, just find and so, there's your introduction also to crystals and that whole world. So I'm like, okay,
Yep.
we're gonna go full bore into this. So started wearing a clear quartz on my name tag. And then things kind of seemed to settle down. So I was like, all right, maybe I'm buying into this because things are settling down, and ended up, we moved to a different town. We started new jobs and moved to a pediatric hospital for the pediatric ER because I'm like, oh, this is going to be my dream job. It's kids and it's the ER. It's perfect. Definitely was not perfect.
No.
But the joke was that there was, the one bank of elevators closest to the ER, there was the one elevator that was constantly under construction, like nonstop. The entire time I was there, it was always under construction. And then when it did work and you got on it, because you'd get on from the ground floor, which actually was the parking, and you'd come up one or two levels to the ER. And so you'd press, go to 2, it'd take you up to the 4th floor. I'm the only one on here. Okay. And then it would come down to the parking garage. And then it'd go up to 3. And then it'd come down to the parking garage. You're like, okay. So I just started talking out loud to be like, okay, guys, this is hilarious. I understand you guys are goofing around. I don't know who's doing this, but like, I actually do need to get to work. And then suddenly getting up to the ER just fine. And it was just one of these things where it's like the little coincidences, the finding Dime
Synchronicities.
and
Yeah.
all this kind of stuff. We had one patient who the worst. So kid was in a car accident with mom. Mom ended up throwing herself on the kid as impact. Mom died instantly. Kid was pretty badly banged up. So they brought him in. He was a trauma. We do all the things. There's a ton of people in this trauma room trying to get this kid. And there's the goosebumps. And so trying to get him stabilized and going from there. And so like these rooms, so the trauma rooms and the peds rooms, because thankfully they're used so infrequently, they're spotless. Like I would eat off the floors of these ER trauma rooms because they are just immaculate. They're so well kept because thankfully there's very little traffic that comes through there. So, take him off to CT. He gets a CT. He comes back, and I'm at the head, and we're trying to do something. And I look down, and there's a dime underneath this kid's head, like all the way on the floor. And I'm going, I don't think that was there before. Like that's really this is really odd. And so again, I'm already a few years into kind of my spiritual journey and finding my place in all this. And so I'm like, oh man. I'm like, okay, I gotta say something. I don't want to say anything, but I gotta say something. And so grandma had finally come in. And of course, like this poor woman is dealing with the death of her daughter and dealing with her grandchild being very severely injured. And so she's just off into La La Land, and rightfully so.
Yeah, of
And
course.
so I grab the dime and I'm like, oh man, like it's such a weird situation. Like, do you say anything? Do you not? I don't know. And so I'm just like, whatever, I'm just gonna do it. And so, everything had been stabilized with the kid. He was doing a little bit better. We were just waiting for a bed up in ICU to be ready. And I go to the grandmother. I said, I don't know what you believe. I said, but for me, dimes are a way of somebody who's crossed, who's trying to say that they are here. And I gave her the dime and I said, I found this under his head, and the room was spotless before we came in. Like, there's no reason that there should be a pristine dime on the floor. And, she didn't really say much. Obviously, she's just so overwhelmed with what's going on. But, it was just one of those times where it's like, you know what? I'm just going to go for it. And if I'm super wrong, I'm super wrong. But, maybe months down the road, this will somehow provide comfort. And that's the whole goal, right? Is just to try and hopefully give them a little bit of comfort with everything
Exactly.
going on.
Yeah, I agree. And funny enough, I mean, hence the name of this show. There's enough people nowadays that believe in, even if they don't believe in the paranormal fully, they believe in spirituality. They believe there's
It's the
something
gateway drug.
beyond.
It's the gateway
It
drug.
it it, it is. They believe there's something beyond, and if they have something like that happen that they can't explain fully, they will start eventually to open their mind and be like, I wonder if this is why these things happened, and eventually they'll probably connect the dots and be like, all right, maybe my daughter was there that night watching over her son and
Yeah.
or her son.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's just these connections happen. I mean, and I see most of my interviews with people who have hospital stories are with people who have experienced NDEs.
Yeah.
So this is a whole new realm because it's kind of an outside perspective instead of
It's a
like the
100% outside. Like, I'm just outside looking in going like, "Holy crap." So
so
it's gotten so far as me kind of coming up with a death ritual. So when somebody dies in the ER, either we've tried to resuscitate them or they've been palliative and we've been able to care for them and they haven't gotten a bed on the floor, because heaven forbid you actually get a bed on the floor within a decent time frame. Um, when everything is said and done and the family's been and gone and we're just about to start wrapping and moving them down to the morgue, I'll go in and I'll be like, you know what, Mrs. So and so, I'm so sorry, but like it was your time and it seemed like your family was lovely, but if you want to follow me, I'm going to take you outside, so that you're not kind of stuck here. And so I will walk the soul out. And my coworkers over the years have been like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm just walking out the soul. And they're like, all right, fine, whatever. Like, they've kind of decided to let me go on my own. But there was one time where during COVID, we still had all visitor restrictions on. Had a patient who was passing in one of the rooms very, very close to the front door. And, wasn't my patient, but I just happened to pop my head in. And sure enough, like, I'm looking at this patient going like, oh man, we've got like 20 minutes before they pass. Like, whose patient is this? What is happening? So, of course, they're at high risk for potentially being COVID. So I gown all up. I go in. My doc, ends up poking his head in the door. He's like, "Oh, what do you want to do? Blood work, this, that, and the other." I'm like, "No. We got like 20 minutes." I'm like, if anything, can I have some morphine? Can I have some scopolamine? Can I have some Versed? Can I have all the drugs to make sure that this goes as comfortably as possible? And of course, she ends up passing before we were able to give the drugs. But, that was the very first time that I had seen somebody pass without intervention whatsoever. And when I tell you, after 14-ish years of work in the ER, that was super disconcerting, because it was, it kind of was like the movies where it was just kind of like a pass and a drop, and they're gone. And you're like, holy Hannah, like, that's not what I'm used to. I'm used to intervening and kind of calling it after we're pretty sure that the patient's already been gone for half an hour, that kind of thing, versus this very gentle, but, wholly natural going. And so, I come out of the room, I degown, I do all the things, and I'm bawling my face off. I'm like, oh my God, I just got to go to the back and take a minute. And I like get halfway down the hallway and I'm like, oh my God, I got to walk out the soul. So I go back up. I said, okay, Mrs. So-and-so, I'm really, really sorry. I'm sorry your daughters couldn't have made it. We had talked to them. They wanted to be here, but unfortunately, like, with the visitor restrictions, they couldn't be here, but you weren't alone because I was here. And so I'm like, if you'd like to come with me, I'm just going to walk you out the door and let you go. And so walk out the door, and it's all of feet, like maybe 3-4 feet to the door and out. And I come out, it's a day shift, but the whole sky is just so dark. And it's about to rain, it's about to thunder, and I'm like, oh god, I hate thunder. And I look up, and here's the most beautiful rainbow that I've ever seen in my entire life. I'm like, holy, I'm like, okay. And at this point, we're all grasping for any sort of like joy or happiness. So I'm like, I run back in. I'm like, guys, you got to see this rainbow. This is awesome. Run back out, and it's gone. So everybody kind of filed back into the ER, and I'm like, okay, that was for me. I
Yep.
get it. I appreciate it. And even
Now, see, you say it's like the movies, and I love to ask this question. Have you ever seen anything similar to the movie Ghost, where I mean, either the scenes in the hospital where either these people ascend up
evil
or
gremlins.
down or down, yeah.
Not not anything like that. I mean, on occasion, you will kind of, especially pediatrics, that the one hospital that was really new, you'd go down those hallways, and because it was almost like a triangle, and we'd shut off all the lights during the night shift to try and let the poor kids sleep. And for the longest time, I could have sworn that I saw something out of the corner of my eye on multiple different shifts, on multiple different occasions. But I'm just like, okay, I'm just gonna turn around and go into the light over here. Um, as per up or down, I don't know. I really don't. But
I mean, did you ever get the feeling that there was something maybe
malicious.
angelic? No, not no. I mean, I didn't want to go that route. But did you ever get the feel? Did you not for pediatrics at least? I mean, come on.
Not for
But
peds.
did
You
you?
hope not for peds.
Well, you don't know in this day and age,
You
but
never know.
I mean, I was gonna say, have you ever seen like got the sense it's like something angelic is watching over a certain patient? Like when you go into a room, like there's just like a feeling of awe
Yeah,
or a feeling
something
of
more.
bliss when you walk into a room, like something's there to
No.
help guide that poor child to where it's gonna go.
I've only ever had one pediatric death, and um,
Well, that's a good thing.
yeah,
I'll say it's a good thing.
thank God, because like one is is more than enough.
Yeah,
And as far as I know, the last time I heard, and this is like a decade ago, it was being ruled a homicide at the time. Um, but no, there was nothing, not about that one. That one was just an oddball. And again, I keep finding myself in these situations where it's like, I feel like I was meant to be there at that time for that scenario. And so my pediatric
yeah,
death 100% was that scenario. I'd come in for overtime. It was a night shift. Um, at 2:30, I had already told them, look, I'm only staying 8 hours. Like, that's all I can do. I've got very, very young kids at home. I'm going. And so I was supposed to go home at 3 a.m. At 2:30, I went to my charge nurse. I said, look, I haven't had a break. Are you okay if I just peace out 30 minutes early? Because like technically I haven't had a break. And she's like, oh yeah, not a problem. Sure enough, the EMS phone, the bat phone goes off, and it's like doot doot doot. And you're like, oh no. And so sure enough, she gets this page, and she goes, okay, there's a young kid coming in, vital signs absent. EMS is working them on scene. Um, and she kind of like doesn't relay this report to me, but I'm overhearing it. I said, okay, I've already had a year experience in peds inpatient. I said, I'm probably the one nurse on the shift right now that's got the most peds experience. I said, do you want me to stay? And she goes, would you mind? I said, not a problem. It makes the most sense, right? Like kids again are something that scare ER nurses, like just petrify us, because you never quite know what's going to happen. It's a whole other ball game with them and their systems and what happens and all this kind of stuff. So you just go, okay, this is not my strong suit. So for me to be there, be like, okay, no, I will 100% be here. I said, I actually already have an app on my phone that helps guide you through a resuscitation, as well as a bunch of other things. PD Stat is a phenomenal app. And so you just put in either the kid's age or the kid's weight, and it automatically does all of the drug calculations for you, so that if you need to intubate them, here are the drugs, here are the dosages. If you need to, do a fluid bolus, this is the dose. Like it takes a lot of the thinking out of pediatrics because everything is weight based. So it's
Yeah.
perfect. So I'm like, okay. So I put my phone on the podium. I pull up the app. I said, okay, once they come in, we'll figure out how much the kid weighs, and then we'll kind of go from there. And like I did compressions, maybe the whole time. I don't know. But again, like everyone's like, oh, are you tired? You need to trade out. And I'm like, it's not the same as adult chest compressions where, man, you feel like you need to be coded yourself after about 2 minutes because your abdominal muscles are just torn, like you're just done.
Yeah.
Kids, it's all hands. And so I'm like, no, I'm okay. Like we'll just continue to go this way, compressions aren't interrupted and everybody can do what they're doing. And so, I don't even know how long went by, but we worked it for a long time. And, I'm looking at my doc. I said, if you're going to call it, I need to go. I can't hear the mother. Like I think I was maybe a year and a half after my second babe. And so I'm like, and very similar ages. So I'm like, I can't be here for this. Like I can't be here. And so, I'm like, if you're going to call it, I'm going to go. So I run out of the department because again, the ER thankfully is very, very close to most of the exits. So I go to leave and I'm like, I left my phone on the podium. I'm like, oh my God, what do I do? I'm like, well, I'm only 7 minutes from home. I could just go home, you call it a day, you walk away. I said, but like, oh man, I can't, like, I've got too much on the phone to like not do.
Yeah.
So I go back in and sure enough, that's exactly the moment when the mother's coming in. And like, you can't unhear that wail. Like you cannot.
I'm sure.
So,
Yeah.
So then it's like, 3:30, 3:45 in the morning and you're wrecked. And, thank God, it was only a 7-minute drive because like, I don't know if I could have gone any further, but it's one of those where you go home and, I made sure to take all the blankets out of my kid's crib just because that was part of the issue in the first place. And I'm like, you know what, forget it. You're not having blankets ever. And just, you're picking your kid up at 4 a.m. because, you just need to be sure that yours is there.
Exactly. I mean, it's just, I can't imagine. I mean, as a father, I can't freaking imagine it.
I don't want you to. I really do not. I don't want anybody to imagine it because it's just the most horrific thing ever.
That's well, that among some other reasons are the reasons I never went into the medical field is because
Yeah.
I couldn't deal with it all. I like to think I'm strong emotionally, but when it comes to people dying, like, could you have done more? Like all the
Yeah.
doubts that go through your head as a nurse, as a doctor. It's just, yeah, it's just no. I've seen enough TV shows where I'm like, I don't want to be in their shoes. I don't want to be in their damn shoes. I mean, yeah, it seems like a cool job to have at times, but I'm like, I don't want. It's cool when you save somebody, but you got to deal with the other side of it
How
too.
often does
So
that happen? How often are you actually getting a full-on save? The number of times I can probably it's hard to quantify, right? Because like, are you intervening at a point where you're just coming in at the right time to save them from actually going way into the wrong direction, and you're just intervening at the right time and then correcting their course? Or are you there for their last moments and you're the one to make their chest soup because their family members unfortunately aren't ready for their loved one to go, and
they're
they're
not.
telling you do everything and all these things, and it's just like, I can't
They're not.
undo.
Yeah, they're not at the acceptance phase yet where they can actually start to accept it.
No, that's
Yeah, I
that's
mean,
probably the worst part of it. There's a lot of things where you can kind of explain away a lot, but it's the ethical burnout where it's, I wholeheartedly disagree with the plan of care of this patient because, we're going at them, 100 miles an hour, and, they're 90, they're 100, they're 107. Um, and the family's like, "Oh no, do everything." And you're like, "I don't think you really understand what do everything actually means."
Yeah.
It's not, so this is why we actually bring a lot of family members in to watch, not just for the patients who are full codes and who arrest and they're already on the floor, but even like the traumatic arrests, we make it a point to try and bring in family while we're still continuing resuscitation
Yeah.
efforts to make sure that they get an understanding that we are doing literally everything we can. And it gives them just a moment where we tell them, come by the bedside. Technically, we're calling them still alive because we're still continuing resuscitation efforts. Come and say goodbye. Come and say what you need to say. We're going to be stopping shortly. So if there is anything that you want to say, please say it.
Exactly. I mean, it makes sense, and that's one of the things that's different from TV shows, because in TV shows and movies they kick everybody out of the damn room when they want to do that.
And that
Which,
was the way, you worry that somebody would be so emotional that they're throwing themselves on the body, and like, trust me, it happens, but people are usually just so in shock that they freeze and they don't know what to do, and they huddle in the corner with their own loved ones watching this all go down, which is also super traumatic. So it feels like a no-win situation, truly, sometimes.
I'm sure it does, and well, well, to lift the mood a little bit after that, because I think everybody listening is probably gonna need it, because that's just
Sorry,
me.
guys. Sorry to be Debbie
No,
Downer.
it's real life. No one can complain. It's real life.
Listen,
But
you wanted the ghost stories, you get the trauma with it.
we, uh, we we can't talk about fairies and Bigfoot in every episode, guys. Come on now. But I mean, trust me, if I could, I would, but I can't. So
We have to
there's
go
other people in the.
paranormal light for the nurses. We're not ready to go down the Bigfoot,
I mean,
fairy.
the day they start. Though supposedly there is a story that's been in paranormal lore for a while of a Bigfoot that was rescued from a forest fire that was put into an ambulance and then never seen again. And neither were the
Stop.
two. And either were the two ambulance workers.
That's fair.
I'm pretty sure the government just made them disappear, but
US or Canada? US?
U.S. because it was out west during forest fires. But
Oh, okay.
I think I want to say it was Washington or Oregon, but
Okay.
they're Bigfoot hotspots. Well,
Somewhere.
everywhere in the U.S. seems to be a Bigfoot hotspot, pretty much except for Hawaii. Except for Hawaii, but
Well, it's too
but
warm for them out there.
I have to ask, because obviously we don't have time to go. Obviously, we don't have time to go through every ghost experience you've had in a hospital, because I'm sure there's tons and tons. But
There's probably a couple more
well,
still, I think.
the one thing I got to ask is, have you actually ever seen a full body apparition in the hospital?
No.
Really?
Not me personally, but um again, it's always when you're sleeping in the rooms, right? When you're finally trying to take a break, you're finally letting down your guard a little bit. You're trying to sleep. And there was one time in my current hospital where I could have sworn I was squeezed, like squeezed. And I'm like, okay, clearly not. So I come out of there going like, what in the world? And I was like, oh yeah, 4's haunted. I'm like, you couldn't have told me that beforehand. Like, everybody knows exactly which rooms are haunted. Fun fact, nurses, when you go to a new unit, key questions to ask: where is the washroom? Where do we go to cry? Where's the bedroom? Which rooms are haunted? That's like the number, like the 4 big key things to hit when you're coming onto a new unit.
Exactly. And of course, well, actually, I want to talk about your book, because I mean, you got
Sure.
to talk about. You wrote a
Sure.
book, and whenever I have an author on, I have to talk about the book they wrote, because it wouldn't be fair if I didn't. It wouldn't be fair if I didn't.
It's
So
appreciated, to be fair.
of course. Well, tell my audience, like, what is your book about? Why should they buy it?
So my book is Nursing Intuition: How to Trust Your Gut, Save Your Sanity, and Survive Your Career. Born out of all of my traumatic experiences and hitting complete rock bottom with COVID. I decided to write down my really good stories to try and explain to my kids, had I not survived working COVID, why I chose to continue to work. So, with the good, obviously comes the super, super bad. And then diving into those traumatic experiences all over again and realizing that the common thread through most of those stories was a moment where I either was trusting my gut and going with it, or I was thinking to trust my gut, and somebody was telling me that no, like you need to not, and the patient had poor outcomes. So the book is actually based in science. You know, there's peer-reviewed, supported evidence for not just intuition, but specifically intuition in nursing. Even more still, critical care nurses they find are actually those who trust their guts the most, only because in life or death situations, you have that inclination to that thought that pops into your head, or you have that gut feeling, and you don't have the time to second guess yourself. So you just go with it. So, you know, it's a mix of here's the science behind intuition, here's all my stories, here's all my bullying stories, you know, here's things to try and help you get through the day and continue to work on. But the key message is, you know, it's not just a 3 a.m. woo-woo conversation anymore. It's now supported by science. So if it's supported by science, we should be teaching it. And there's a very large part of me that is hoping that maybe this opens up more conversations into public arenas about things that are very much considered woo-woo or paranormal or of that kind of sort. So this is my baby. Comes out October 29th. It's available for pre-order on Amazon currently. And so if you just search up either Nursing Intuition or Jennifer A. Johnson, RN, you will find my book as well as a bunch of my journals that I've kind of brought together, just trying to help new nurses cope and trying to staunch the bleeding that's happening with just the loss of nurses all over.
Which, I mean, in the paranormal and spirituality world, trusting your gut, any medium, any psychic, anybody in these fields will tell you, trusting your instincts and trusting your gut will get you out of more situations than trying to fight it by far.
Absolutely.
Because we don't know exactly. I mean, well, we do kind of know. I mean, it's basically just the universe. The universe has ways of telling us to do things, and whether you want to listen to that or not is always at your discretion. But
Absolutely.
usually the universe is telling you something, it's for a damn good reason. So you should follow it. And I mean, if the universe tells you not to get in your car that moment and not drive, then don't drive, because 10 to 1, something's gonna happen if you do. And
how many women have gotten that gut feeling about a guy being a creep? That's where it all starts. So nurses being predominantly female, being, you know, having known this feeling from a very, very young age, you know, we're apt to trust it, to be a little bit more exposed to it, to really go with it.
I mean, as they should. I mean, mother's intuition doesn't just start when you become a mother. It's there naturally for all females, I believe, and it strengthens 100% with each kid you have. I'm pretty damn sure.
Yeah.
But you have it from birth, because women need to have it in this day and age, especially because men are. A lot of my fellow men are not the best, so I'll put it that way. I don't want to.
The bear or the
call
man.
names.
It's the whole conversation all over again. But it's just one of those things where you get very good very quick at figuring out situations and reading people. And is that you just being in tune to people, or is that actually like intuition and the universe going like, would not trust this guy, would not trust this situation, you need to get the hell out?
Well, women, I will say this: I've seen what a bear can do to my chickens. So unless the bear is a big hairy man who likes other men, I wouldn't go with the bear regardless. But avoid that man as well. Just kind of go the opposite way of all of them. That's the way I put it.
Fair enough.
But yeah, I mean, it's just that's the way I feel about that, because it's not a good metaphor, because bears are fucking dangerous. So I mean, they really are. I mean, I've seen what bears can do to other animals. So
listen, you've seen what men can do to people.
Oh, we've done a lot
we could go down that little road show.
Oh, trust me, we've done a lot of serial killer related things on this show. So
Nice.
yes, I know exactly what men can do as well, and it's just. But then, I mean,
It's
there
not.
are women serial killers as well. I'll put that out there. But
Yes. You know, we had to
there's
represent at some point.
well, I mean, yeah, representation matters. But there's definitely been less women than men. I'll put it that way. But so men are definitely yeah, and yeah,
That's a
this could
whole
turn easily.
other. That's like a
This is
series podcast.
oh yeah, this is turning into a whole. This could turn into a whole debate on what makes a serial killer, which I'm not trying to get into that debate again. I've done it, but yes, anybody who wants to go into nursing or just anybody in general should check out this book because it seems like it's going to teach you a lot on how to be human, especially for women. It seems like it's going to teach you a lot on how to be human.
Yeah.
So it's an important thing. I will say that. And before we do say goodbye, what is the one thing you would tell any new nurse that they should know before they jump into this career path?
Oh God, it's gonna be
Oh,
bad.
it's a tough one.
It's gonna be bad, and that's okay. So me personally, I cried every day after every shift for an entire year. To be fair, that was also related to a bullying situation. But the jump from nursing school to in-person nursing at the bedside is a straight up learning curve. So please be very, very gentle with yourself. Know that you are not going to know it all. I'm 16 years in and I still absolutely do not know it all. You know, please be kind to yourself. You know, learn how to say no to those shifts. If you're not willing to do it, just say that you've been drinking. They can't do anything if you've said that you've been drinking or that you do not have childcare. That covers you for all angles. But start thinking that what if my patient acted the way I do? You know, you'd be labeled non-compliant in a heartbeat. So, you know, reach out. There are a lot of us who are very, very supportive and want to see you succeed and want to watch you grow and watch you flourish and become, you know, the most fantastic nurse that you can be without losing yourself. So we're getting there. If you've got a bully, you come see me. I take their names. But you're not alone and you're not unique in the situation, as sad as it is. So please know that we're here. There's a lot of us that are here for you.
Very well said, I believe. Very well said. That actually is beautiful. So that is where I will end it. I do want to thank Jennifer for coming on, but where can people find you if they want to reach out, whether they ask you questions about your book or for any other non-nefarious reasons? Don't be creeps, guys. We talked about it. Don't be creeps.
Yeah, it's fair. You can find me on TikTok and Instagram at ernurse.jen, Jenn with 2 N's. I'm on LinkedIn. It's Jennifer Johnson, BSCNRN. Don't come for me. There's just a million Jennifer Johnsons. I'm sorry I had to use all my credentials. I'm on Amazon, Jennifer A. Johnson RN. You can find all my books there. And rxforgrowth.com. So prescriptionforgrowth.com is my website. And I would love to connect with everybody who needs a little bit of support because Lord knows I've been there and I'm here for you.
100%. And that right there, folks. Of course, some of those links will be posted in the episode, so in the description. So please, as always, go and just click and go and check it out and reach out if you feel the need. I want to thank you for coming on. It's been an amazing episode, and our medical week continues tomorrow, folks. You may ask how, you may ask why. Find out tomorrow because I don't feel like going into it now. But and then make sure you come back tomorrow. So, exactly. But as for me, folks, you should know where to find me by now. If you don't, just fucking shame. But check the outro, listeners. It's all there. Watchers, it's wherever you're watching right now. Just follow me there. I will be back tomorrow, and I think I might have a weekend show for you guys this weekend. Actually, I'm pretty sure I do. So
there you go.
I will see you guys this weekend as well. And I bid everybody adieu and have a good night. And remember, don't go to the hospital unless you really need to.